Well, good morning, everyone. I've got a plan this morning, which is to discuss how to patch and create stereo basses in Ableton. Not Ableton. What am I talking about? Not Ableton. Definitely not. No, not Ableton. It's going to be Studio One, but we're going to use Native Instruments Massive to create this bass. And Massive is a very well known synthesizer. It's been around for a long time. Lots of people have it. So that's it should be applicable in whatever DAW you happen to be using. I've already made a kick drum for this. If you watched the Largo demonstration on how to make kick drums and bass synths, you should understand exactly how this was made. The only difference is I put in a little bit of noise on the top ends. I took out some of the top end of the click section I made and put in a different layer using a third instance in the multi-symbol synth, and I made the very front of the attack more noise based, so you'll recognise that. But apart from that, it's exactly the method I showed you when I was making a kick using Largo's multi-timbrality. So it's one sine wave for the bass and body of the kick, another sine wave for the click, and then I also had some noise in there, a bit of stereo noise. So I had to bounce it down because stereo noise is different each time. But this is what it sounds like, which is a kind of pretty standard kick, really. Quite subby, maybe a little bit too subby, but I can drop that out easy enough. Let's get on with building a stereo bass. So the first thing to say is that Massive is not a multi-timbral synth, so we're going to have to run multiple instances of it to do what I want to do, which is a shame, but there we go. And very quickly, I'm going to set up the patch I want to make, the notes, the MIDI. And the MIDI is going to be incredibly simple. It's going to be on E. I'm going to use 30-second notes to allow myself a bit of release. That's that. Okay, now we can mess around with that more if we want to later on, but for now, the first step in setting up a stereo bass is to set up a good mono bass. And the reason stereo bass is difficult, we'll get into, but fundamentally, it needs to be a good bass patch you start out with, a good mono bass patch, which will be stable and secure. And we'll get into how to turn this into stereo bass in a bit and why it's a problem in a bit. But let's get going with this. I know that we are without doubt going to need a compressor on this channel, because if you look in the bass MIDI, I'm running bass notes on the beat with the kick drum. So that will create a problem. And the next thing to say is, because that kick is so bassy, if I just put in a compressor on there, so I'm teaching you multiple different things at once now. If I just put the compressor in there, the bass from the compressor will the bass from the kick will constantly trigger the compressor. And so I won't be able to pull the bass back. It will sort of constantly be getting pushed around in volume, and that's not really what I want. I might have too much bass in the kick, but I might not. I quite like a kick which goes on. So we're going to see how it works and experiment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up another channel. I'm going to add a bus for the selected channels. And now my kick drum goes into bus 1. And I'm going to call this kick SC. And that's going to be my sidechain channel. I'll open that up. And I'm going to put in a Pro Q on here, which is an EQ. It's the inbuilt EQ. It really doesn't matter. The cheapest EQ you have at this point. And I'm going to high pass that. It doesn't matter where, around there probably, 250, because I don't actually want this kick drum to sound at all. And then I'm going to put a compressor on my bass channel, and I'm going to send the kick from the kick SC into the compressor on the bass channel. And I want that to be about 0. I'll punch it in up there, but that'll be easier. Oh, and actually I made a mistake. I don't want to send the output of this so up here I've put the output of the kick channel into the kick SC. I don't want to do that. I want it to have it on a send. And I want it to be 0 dB. That's perfect. Mute out that for a second. You see now that the I've created a secondary channel which is also affecting the main output. So if I mute that, the kick changes volume, which I don't want. So I'm going to turn that right down all the way to nothing, and then click this little button here, and that will now send the audio out of the channel to the sidechain of the compressor before the channel fader, and then the channel fader will be reduced down to nothing, and my kick volume isn't changed here in the output, which is perfect. That's exactly what I want. So with the compressor, it's now receiving the kick sidechain, and more than that, it's receiving the EQ kick sidechain. So if you look at this here, which is gain reduction, if I turn off the Pro Q, that's what happens. So now I'm making it pump. By affecting the signal that I send the sidechain compressor, I'm making my kick pump. And I'll pull that down. I don't really need any attack. I don't want it to be adaptive. Probably something like that will be about right. Let's have a listen with the bass on. I think about there is going to be right. So what I'm doing there is I'm setting my ratio up to the maximum, and the threshold the compressor kicks out to the absolute lowest level that I can do, and that allows me to really hear the compression very blatantly and get the timings right, because the timings of the attack and release are the difficult bits of setting up a compressor. Once you've got the volume, and once you've got the timings right, getting where you want to, how much compression you want, is simply a case of playing with these two knobs, which is a lot easier than trying to play with 4 knobs and get the right sound if you're not quite sure how it works. So let's have a little listen. That's going to be about right. So that's all I want to do with the kick, really. Let's get on to actually patching the synth. Okay, so very familiar synth. I'm only going to be working with one oscillator. I'm going to turn off all that. And now I'm going to put this into, I'm going to choose a different saw wave. I'm going to go about there. I'm going to need a low pass filter. So these are sort of standard things I do when I'm setting up a bass synth in Massive. I'll move the filters into serial mode. I'll send it all through filter 1, which gives me the option if I want to of using filter 2. And then I'll take the output from filter 2. If I don't use filter 2, it just goes through it as if it isn't there. So that's perfect. I set up a saw wave. I restart via gate the phase of the oscillator, and typically I go for, well, we'll get to that. I make the attack as short as possible. I push the release out a bit. I up the level a bit, and now normally I'll see where I'm at. So I'll set up the envelope. That's too much resonance. Envelope, again, the same thing. I normally make the release stage of my filter envelope a little longer than the release stage of my amplitude envelope. And that really helps with the sounds. It's, if I make it shorter, it kind of cuts out. And that's the kind of thing I'm looking for. The tricky bit is judging. I'll mute out this modulation. The tricky bit is judging where to set this cutoff to start with. try and aim to get some harmonics through. Especially if you're working in headphones, it can be very, very confusing. So, and the temptation when you're working in headphones is to have just the sub, because it sounds so goddamn fat, like that. And you can hear that really clearly in headphones, but if you listen on most other speakers, you will not be able to hear, especially smaller speakers like your laptop. And everyone listens occasionally on their laptop, although we're writing dance music and it's for the dance floor. If you listen to any really well produced track on your laptop, you will find that you can hear the bass note. So have a little listen, and about there, which can sound too high when you're just setting the knob, maybe there, when you're just setting the knob that sounds too high, but you'll now be able to hear that on the smaller speakers, I hope. And I'm going to unmute my modulation now. I'll set that back to the right distance. And that's the kind of thing I'm looking for. Okay, so let's work on that. I think the compressor could go down a bit more. And I need to EQ it. I'm going to use a different EQ. I want an EQ which is more precise basically, so I'm going to chuck a span on the channel anyway. That's a very sort of, that's a good curve, shall we say. As in there's no harmonics which are really clearly sticking out, but there's a lot of low end action. So I'm going to use this computationally expensive but financially free EQ again, because it has such a goddamn steep low end filter that seems to work incredibly well. And you can see straight away that it's taken out all that low end rumble. It's just gone. Hasn't really affected this. I didn't really hear very much difference on phase. It's just a really good filter. So TDR Nova, the high pass filter on that, if you have access to the TDR Nova filter, which everyone does, is free. I don't know if there's a Mac version. There's definitely a PC version. It's a strongly recommended filter. Computationally heavy hitter though, be warned. Okay, so I'm starting to get there with this bass patch. I'm going to chuck this into a group channel. Oh no, not yet. I will need a group channel. And I'll add that, and add another bus, and I'm going to call this bass group. And then I'm going to take my kick and my bass group, and I'm going to make another group, and I'm going to call that kick bass. Okay, so let's get back into working on our bass patch here. And there's one or two different fills I like to give a whirl. No. I can give that a go. I think I'm happy with that. Let me just check on my actual ears rather than headphones. Okay, I'm comfortable with that. So, I now have a bass patch. And maybe I would like to tidy up the bass end on this kick drum just a little bit. something like that. And we can also change the phase of our oscillator, which I don't think we've done. And normally I go around there. And it can help to, so if I make the release really short, then I can sort of focus on the attack. If I overlap them, it becomes much harder to distinguish what is the attack and what's the release. So I'll make it really short and I can get the phase where I want it. I think I like it around there. Have another quick little check. And that still sounds fine. So other little tricks you can do is you can have a look at the output analyzer. You can do minor bits of shaping. So this is quite a middly bass, I'm noticing. So if I just do that, it's going to help shape it. I can set a high shelf, and it can also be a great idea to control the uppers. In this case, I'm quite happy with where the uppers are. I might put it on a low pass, just about there. But honestly, I could probably do with more uppers on this bass, if anything. Something like that. Got a bit more snap. And maybe I'll try some dynamic EQ with this. Could be a little bit more subtle. And I kind of like that. I'm pretty happy with that. So what I want to do to make this a stereo bass, and I'll go into the problems you can develop with stereo basses right now, is duplicate this completely. And there's various different ways you can do this. You can save a preset and duplicate it if you're running in a DAW where it's easy to set up multiple instruments from one MIDI track, like Ableton with his instrument racks. Just copy it down. But make sure you're using the same sort of synth, that all the settings are the same, and then we'll go from there. So for me, the simplest way of doing this is to run 2 MIDI channels. I duplicate track complete. I'm going to move that next to massive for easiness' sake. So that instantiates another synth called Massive 2. The settings will be identical between the two synths if I play them. It's just like hearing the same synth, only louder, because exactly the same thing is occurring. Goes to the same channel, it's got the same processing on it. That's all perfect. And what I want to do is jump into this new Massive. Let's rename them for clarity. So I'm going to call. Ooh, sorry about that. Hope that didn't make too big a click. I'm going to call this bass mono. And I'm going to call this one bass stereo. Jump into this synth here. So now I've got 2 channels, both identical. And all I'm going to do is jump around. And I'm going to take off restart via gate. In voicing, I'm going to jump around to this panel. I'm going to go up to 5. You can try 3, you can try 7. 7's quite ambitious. I'm going to go for 5. I'm going to put my pan to full and make absolutely sure that these are all the way on 0. And let's just have a listen to that on its own. Now that's a stereo bass. And if you want to know what the problem with stereo bass is, I'll put in an EQ and I'll show you. I'm just going to turn on a low pass filter. That's clipping. I'll make sure it's not clipping. And now I'm going to reduce this to mono. And look how inconsistent that is. Let's play the filter a bit. Can actually be clearer. If I take it down to 2 voices. You hear how weird that is? It's not steady at all. If I copy this across onto our mono channel, and stereo that, completely steady. So stereo bass, it will phase against itself when it's in mono and create unsteady bass sounds, unsteady, varying in dynamics in a really bad way and a not predictable way, something you can't programmatically control. It's just, no, don't do it. Also, in addition to that, it doesn't work too well with the old vinyl. From what I hear, I don't have personal experience of that, but from what I hear, it doesn't work too well with the vinyl, which is another good reason if you ever happen to have your music transcribed to vinyl to avoid stereo bass. So what can we do about that? Well, the obvious thing to do is to EQ it. And we're going to use this plugin to EQ it. I'm going to take off that low pass filter and I'm going to jump to this button here and I'm going to change that to difference. And what difference is, basically, it's the stereo bit of our signal. Some is the mono bit, so I can or is it? I can't remember. This works. 2 seconds. Having a minor crisis. A crisis of confidence. Yeah, the difference. Ignore me. I'm fine. Okay, so I'm gonna jump. It's on the difference. That's fine. And I'm going to set up the high pass filter to cut out the bass frequencies. I have no problem with the uppers being stereo. In fact, that's kind of what I'm going for. But what I don't want is the actual phase cancellation, which really changes the volume of the mix, because bass signals tend to be far larger in amplitudes than the upper signals. I really don't want them to be affected in that way, because it will completely destroy my ability to mix. All my headroom will be chewed up. It's bad. And it will be incredibly muddy. Your ears don't hear well bass frequencies. It's not precise, and what it will come across as is just mud. So we're going to avoid that. I'm going to set this unison back up to 5 again. Actually, I'm just working on my stereo bass. Yeah, the uppers sound great. Great. Sounds so good in headphones, even like that. But trust me, it will sound appalling if you actually try and mix with it. And I don't want a steep slope because that will be very noticeable. So I'm going to reduce that down to 12. And I'm going to go up to about there, I think. So I'll make it really blatant. And what you can hear, if I go all the way up, I'm now running essentially a bass signal through here, and you can see that on the channel. It's just bass going through. And span is very useful for this. And the reason span is very useful for this is it has this correlation meter, and you can see how decorrelated your mix is becoming, i.e. how stereo it is. And you're fine down to 0. And if you start going below 0, your mix is going to have problems. So we're going to play this over again. I'm going to go down to about there and check span again. You see I'm barely tickling it. If I go further down still, let's go all the way down and jump into span. And you see we're starting to have problems. It's not as bad as it could be because there's so many voices, but that's not ideal at all and unnecessary. It's not going to help the mix. So about there. And this is where I have to do a little bit of maths, because the more I filter it, the more noticeable it becomes that I filtered it. And I'm not looking for that. I'm trying to make quite a subtle, nice effect that I don't instantly pick up as being, oh, he's fucked around with the stereo signal on this. So I want it to sound natural. The steeper the filter is, the more unnatural it will sound. And the higher up it is, the more I will notice it, because that's how ears work. Around 1,000 kilohertz, your ears are like hardwired to notice things. And I don't want to get anywhere near that. I'd like it to be as low as possible. So I'm going to work with the filter and say that the slope of the filter, and say that for every 12 dB, for every octave I go down, the filter is 12 dB quieter. So I know that if I set it at, say, 500 Hertz, then at 250 Hertz I'll be 12 dB quieter. At 125 Hertz I will be 24 dB quieter. You get the idea. So at 36 Hertz, at 75 Hertz I'll be 36, and that's kind of around where I want to be. So 500 Hertz with a 12 dB slope is looking pretty attractive. I could try jumping up to a 24 dB slope, but this is going to be much more noticeable. And the other thing I'm looking at is how much volume change there is, because that's the real enemy in this equation. See how I move it all the way up there and there's much less change? Okay, I think we're probably good with that. Let's jump this up to 16384. And using span, I can check just the sidebands, which is exactly what I'm doing here. And I'm pretty happy with that. This is a mono. And that's the mid. If anything, not the mid, the sidebands. If anything, I can go a little lower. Let's check that out. See, that is now a problem. That's too low. I'm okay with that. I'm going to leave it there. So now I've got a safe channel which I can use, and if I mono this using a binaural pan again, I'm getting variation in volume, but the bass isn't a big problem. Hey KDK, don't know if you're still watching. Hi, nice to see you. So there's variation in volume there, but not in the bass, and that's important. So let's take off that binaural pan. Now I'm going to layer this signal in with the mono bass signal, and the reason I maintain the mono bass signal isn't only because it has this solid bass signal, let's jump back around to it, but also because it has that solid attack which I set using the oscillator phase. So there's always going to be an attack at that point, and we'll maintain the punch and impact of our bass. So I'm going to turn this down, all the way down. Yeah, perfect. Let's run that. So this is the original bass, and I'm going to put in just a smidge of side, essentially. And this is our bass group here. So this is our signal that we're putting out. Let's take off the solo. It needs a bit of EQ work to fit around the kick, but yeah, fundamentally that's a yes. So how can I improve that further? The obvious thing for me from here is to have a little look at some way of compressing the volume differential. So you see that it's kind of really up and down. And for me, the obvious thing to do is to actually distort it slightly, because that will help compress it, and it can improve the tone quite substantially. So let's open up Guitar Rig, which is how I normally compress things. And of course I'm going to need EQ as well, and I want EQ, I'm pretty much certain I'm going to want EQ right at the end of this signal, so we'll just open up that, maybe not that one, probably another Nova. See, that's not great. I'm going to switch on the old high pass again. Go up to there, that should keep us nice and safe. And back into guitar rig. So, I want an amp. I want to distort this way. I don't know what amp I want, but I tend to choose between two, which is this AC box. Believe it or not, we'll get there. Or the other one I go for is the Citrus. High wire might be worth a go to. We'll give that a little while. Alright, so these are my three options. I'm going to get rid of these cabinets. And we're going to run this essentially just like a form of parallel compression, but with the added property that it will add harmonics and a bit of colour to the signal, a bit of crunch. And what the sort of character I'm looking for from these amps is I want mid-punch. I'm not looking for very scoop sound. I want mid-punch, a bit of a fizzy top end, and not too much fucking around with the bass. I want to keep that relatively flat if I can. The more I distort the bass, the sketchier it can sound. If I want to distort the bass, and I might well do, then I tend to make this slightly more of a square wave. And in fact, I kept that totally sore. So let's try a little bit of square wave in there. I'm just going to move both of them around to 90. I'll turn off the distortion before I see that. I think I prefer that. Okay, so how we go with this? First of all, and I am going to want a cabinet, so I'm going to put in another high white, and I'll delete that and I'll turn that off. So now I've got a cabinet in there, and I can change the mode of cabinet to match it to whatever very simply. So I want to run the distortion as a form of parallel distortion effectively, or parallel compression. So I'm going to put in a split tool, which allows me to crossfade between the effects in split A and the effects in split B at will. So I'm going to put all of these amps in split B. And now split B will go through the distortion, and split A goes through nothing, so split A is our dry signal. At the moment there's no difference. So let's have a little play with these, see what we can get going on. Clean. Very trebly. Kind of almost scoopy, that one. Put it in stereo, that would help. Not convinced. It's not boosting the mids, it's boosting the top. Set that to dirty clean. That's boosting the mids. that is the kind of thing I'm looking for. Very much the kind of thing I'm looking for. And that's a bit more natural. That inverts the phase. Like kind of having like a weird flanging effect, so I was crossfading, which means it is kind of out of phase. That's the kind of effect I'm looking for. Okay, I suspect I'm going to stay with that, but in the interest of fairness, we'll go for the high white. Oh, I don't know. That's pretty nice straight away. That's also very nice. Decisions. Got both of them on. Less nice. You see, the citrus was deluding me. That's very much the kind of thing I'm looking for. So obviously this is based after an orange amp and cabinet. So let's try plugging in the cabinet, and we're going to do, because that can provide a little bit more seating in the mix. It's almost like a reverb. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do exactly the same thing. It's going to be a mid-side process. So the cabinet simulator goes in split B. The dry signal after it comes out of here, it goes into split A. Let's turn on that cab. And we're not looking for much of this at all. And any of these cabinets might work. They say matched cabinets. In my experience, any of them can work with any of them. Don't like that when it's a bit got too much of a harmonic. Zzz. So far the high white's out in front. Quite like the AC box. I think we're going for the high white. And that's your kind of reverb-like effect right there. Oh, I see. And I'm pretty happy with that. I think that's a good sounding bass, and you know that the kick is actually working better now. So I'll turn this off again. we've made the signal less muddy by doing that. Let's have a look in the analyzer. I can maybe shape it out a bit. Maybe some of this, just to give it a bit more thud. And maybe chuck across that compressor onto the channel as well, just to be really safe. And that's our kick sidechain channel, so we're going to shove that across to the bass group. Oh, I'll tell you what I didn't do. That compressor isn't set up right. Sidechains. Technically I could get away with that, but it's not worth it. And that one's incorrect. So let's set that up correctly as sidechains again, and I want the compressor on the bass group. I'll just check I've done that right. I wonder why that compressor isn't kicking. There we go. Let's take off the stereo. Oh, I muted everything. And that is how you make a stereo bass. And this should be safe if I put it into mono. I'll drop that down a bit as it's clipping. So binaural pan, which is Studio One's way of making something mono. It's going to work on a dance floor, nothing wrong with that. But happy time in mono. So perfect. That's a win. That's how you make a stereo bass in which works on the dance floor and in your ears. Thank goodness for that. Okay, so let's say you didn't want to make a stereo bass, but you wanted to make a layered bass. You could make it stereo, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make it just for the sake of simplicity. I'm going to make a layered bass. So I'm going to use one sound for the actual bass, the frequency component, which is bass, and another sound for the top. At least one other sound for the top, so I can make something which is a little bit different. Let's go ahead and mute these out. I'll take the MIDI because we'll work with that again, and I'm going to turn off yeah, I'm going to turn off everything here just to save on CPU because I've used a lot of expensive EQs. The synth won't use anything, that's fine. So I'm just down to my kick now. I'm going to go ahead and open up another massive. and I'm going to call this low layer. So we're back to that sound. We came quite a long way in a short time, hey. 50 minutes to go from there to a full-on layered bass. So that's not layered, stereo bass. Let's try and do a layered bass. A little bit less practice of this. I don't do this so much. So again, I'm going to go for a saw. I'll keep it on saw 1 this time. Why not? I'll restart via gate. Get a low pass filter. Make sure I've got my default routing, which I like set up. Chuck that open a bit. So pretty much exactly the same to start with. And we know what it looked like. It was kind of like this. Pretty much like that. Oh, it helps if I turn up that. I thought it was bass. This time I don't actually want to set the filter like this. I want to set the filter more like this. Just get that low through. Now, and in fact I'm going to set this to parallel. So I have got this knob here. Essentially, it's just letting through a sub frequency. It's not doing anything more than that. But using this oscillator, I'm going to layer something on top. And it can be anything at all, really. It doesn't have to be a saw. It could be, let's go for one of these waveforms instead. Something like that. And using that, I'm going to modulate the amplitude. Something like that. Well, no, actually, I'll tell you what, it's a lot easier to do this on a separate synth. So, that's synth 1. I'm going to duplicate this. That's perfect. And I'm going to call this high layer. Yeah, I'm much happier with that. And instead I'm going to set up envelope modulation to oscillator 1. I'm going to chuck back in this oscillator. Get an interesting signal. Which could be many different things. I want routing. something like that. And then finally I'm going to put in this extra filter here, and I'm going to set the crossover so I'm making a crossover filter, so I'm going to try and set the high pass filter so it's in roughly the same place as the filter from the other synth. Oh, there we go. And let's increase get a little bit of action going on. And play with the phase until it kind of starts to sound like one sound. Maybe there. Let's play with this sound a little bit more. I can believe that. We'll layer this up. And we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to treat it with some fairly radical distortion to kind of stick these two layers together. So we're going to make a bus for the selected channels. They both go into there. Now let's have a look in the span and see what we've done. What dreadful sound we've created. The top is a bit too loud. Something like that. Okay, so we'll get an EQ on there to help the bottom end. That tidies it up a little bit. What else can we do with a nice EQ? There's a couple of frequencies in there I'm not so keen on. So I'm going to boost them up. That's better. Maybe that's a bit much. And then maybe my ear's playing tricks on me, but I think I've got another one. Not easy to hear this one. Let's have a look in span. It's got a better frequency analyzer. So I think these are ones which I've actually boosted up myself. I've got one at 3.9. That's probably it. Or it might be 1.5. Or it might be 935. There. That's better. Okay, I'm happy with that. And we could try the same thing again using this high layer. What we could do is we could copy this layer out and set it so it did this. So effectively, that's another way of making a stereo bass. And obviously you want to put in a compressor from here again. Oh no, I need to actually set the compressor up first. Because at the moment it's still on every single beat with no sidechain whatsoever. Just causing problems. I'll tell you what, I'm going to take off that stereo just for a second. Why not just for a second? I'm not prepared to go through all that. So we'll set up a compressor. And you could layer in as much as you wanted. You could have a little kick sound at the front of your bass. Lots of people do that. So kind of little kick drum attack. Now let's set the kick to sidechain. Ooh. Set that to 0. Make it pre-fader. That should now be working. Non-adaptive. Probably around there. Yeah, why not? And again, we can slide in a bit of distortion to try and get a better sounds. We'll do exactly the same as last time, which was 2 splits. And just for argument's sake, I'm going to use the same distortion as last time. Not distortion, which is amplifier. So there's my Citrus amplifier. I'll move the cabinet into split A. We'll do it that way this time. I'll set up the clean channel. So that's about 1. Put on our cabinet sim. And because we're not actually running in stereo this time, we can use this quite effectively to generate a stereo signal. Listen to that. And let's check that out, see whether it's working in mono. So that is our mono layered bass, and we're just using a guitar cabinet sim to make that stereo. Not bad. I'm not sure which one I prefer. They're both pretty good. I'm going to take a break. Then I'm going to come back very shortly, just to finish some tea, make another cup of tea, visit the restroom, and then I'm going to actually write some music. I'll show you what I've been up to over the weekend, which involves a stereo bass. So I'll see you in probably 5 minutes or so. We'll carry on until about 11 o'clock GMT and go from there. See you in 5. Right, okay, that wasn't too long. I'll just check I'm still, sound is working correctly. Perfect. Perfect. That's all good. So, this is what I've been working on over the weekend, which is I'm writing some, it says big room trance, but it's turning into progressive. As you can hear, the bass is pretty stereo. And I've been struggling with ideas, really, to be honest. What's here is good. And maybe the bass is a bit sludgy. Don't know. But that's the bass. Wow. That's pretty heavy. Maybe too heavy in retrospect. I'm not so sure. So what am I going to do with this? I like to make some more effects to generate interest, and I'd really like to come up with a better idea, but I'm not sure I'm going to be able to pull that off on stream. So, in terms of effects, I definitely can do some of that. We'll go for massive. And I like massive because it's very simple to set up unison LFOs and things like that. It's quick to work with, and it's got powerful LFOs, which are great for effects. So I'll jump in. And I'm a big fan, big sucker for square waves on effects. We'll go with that. Just noise will probably be fine. I can set the amplitude up. I'll set it to filter 1. There's LFO 4. That's what we're going to do. And I don't think sidechaining. I think we're just going to go for straight filter modulation. I'll make sure that's mono. We're going to sweep up through the filter. Set that release way out. Set the attack up. And somewhere in here we're just going to start making noises. Of course, it would help if I didn't have the oscillator on. Set the colour to about there. That's going to work. And I'm also going to change the speed of the LFO as it goes upwards. So also set envelope 3 to modulate LFO 5. And this will now get faster over time. Too fast. And I'm going to put a high pass filter in after that. Make sure it's just all going straight through, so it goes from filter 1 into filter 2. And I'll take the output only from filter 2. Maybe get some delay going on with that. And these are sort of just little background swirls. They help add interest. Even if you're not really particularly aware of them, they add interest to your ear, and they will help you focus on the tune, keep your interest in the tune going. So it's always beneficial to sort of have quite a few noises like this. Yeah, that's all good. Make sure there's no bottom end getting through. It should be fine. Maybe turn down the resonance on that filter a touch. And the other thing we can do is we can sweep through the colour of the noise. That sounds fun. I'll bounce that down. Don't get too tied up with noises like this, it's not worth it. They're so quick to make, it's easier just to remake it if it's not right. Just bounce it straight to audio, don't mess about. I think if I mute out the two leads for now, these two big leads, that's actually going to help me write. It's kind of, I can't run them forever indefinitely. And maybe get some house chord type things going on. The trick is don't get stuck. If it's so easy to get stuck in a loop. It really is. And as you can see here, I've got basically a 33 bar loop, which I'm just going round and round on there going, yeah, I really like the sound of that, but I've got no idea how to develop it. And the best thing you can do at that point is cut something out. Something's locked, basically. And if you keep on trying to just add stuff in, all that's going to happen is you're going to end up with a muddy mess. You're not going to have any more sense of development from where you were. You're going to have exactly the same problems that you already had, but it's going to sound messier. And you're still not going to be any further along. So the best thing you can do is cut things out when you get into loop-iters. Turn things off. And then you'll find that you have holes which you need to fill, which will generate new ideas. And you can carry on. At least that's the theory. It doesn't always work, but that's what I try and do in situations like that now. I'll turn stuff off, and with a little luck, that will turn back on my creative brain. And I'll start creating new ideas. So immediately, as opposed to this, which I've heard for hours, and doesn't have a lot of space because I've got this huge swirly reverb, I'm turning both of these off. And I've got this kind of, it sounds dark. It makes me want to write FX. It makes me want to write bad things, you know? So I'm in a different place than I was when I turned on the tune and opened it up. Immediately, I'm thinking, what can I do with this? And in a much more creative headspace than I was. So I'm going to open up a Falcon because I want to make something a bit. Bleh. I'm going to open up my favourite little sample library. In here, documents. No, it's not there. It is in complete library. Ambient atmospheres and rhythms. Drones and abstract. Maybe not a breakdown loop. Glurp. No, no. I think I do want that. Okay. Getting distracted. Tree. We'll set this up. We're just going to make a noise. New program. Don't get distracted. It just slows you down. I'm enjoying myself, but it's work, if you know what I mean. Treat it as such. Have fun, but get the job done. Immediately I'm going for a multi-granular again. Open back up my sample library. I think I want bowed. That's going to do the sort of thing I want it to do. Who knows? Who knows? It could be good. In the hands of the random sample. Now, I've just come in. At this point in the tune, I've just got to the snare, I think. We get this wicked little sway thing. So at this point, that's fading off, and about now I want the next thing to come in. And I find that's important. Work with the space in your tune. So you got to, before you decide to write, have a little listen to what's just happened and think, when is the right point for the next idea to come in, or the next whatever to come in, and just keep on putting the whatevers in, and you'll get ideas. I suffer from quite appalling writer's block. Oh my god. It would appear that the random sample beastie is taking us into a very, very dark place. Let's solo this out. I'm going to make this 4 bars. It's a really slow sample. And that is a sinister, sinister atmosphere if ever I've heard one. This computer's showing me warnings. Scared, I think. Okay, so voice is 8. Random a little bit. Speed nothing. Position we'll play with. Size 200mm. A little bit of jitter. All the density. Duration variation a little bit. And little bits of that. Okay. And my soloed I am. I'll set up my loop markers around here. Oh, didn't mean to do that. That is an ominous sound. Whoa. Okay. Delay. That sound needs delay. Long verb. I mean, that damn thing. Okay. I'm going to set this to an envelope. And I wanted, and what was that? That was about 10%, wasn't it? So down here, the envelope is set up. I'm going to change the modulation amount to 0.1 if I don't lose my place. That's useful. About there, I think. Just going, I need to set the attack, obviously. Losing my mind. Set up the attack on the modulation, and I'll set a long attack on the amplitude as well. And let's move. I'm not helping myself by having the marker at exactly the right place. So let's move that out. I think that's pretty scary. I like that. There's a lot of low end rumble on the sounds. And I'm going to put that in there. We'll set up a filter, brick wall filter. This has hugely steep filters, which is really useful for this sort of synth, which is so varied and can generate so many strange sounds. That is goddamn eerie. I'm going to turn the gain up. And then I'm going to use this crazy dual delay. It's quite dense. Yeah, I like that. I like that more. And it's I'm still a little worried about the EQ. It's that's a very strange signal. I'm okay with the high signal. It's the first ringing noise. It's really quite a lot. That's better. More gain, more gain. I can turn it down in the mixer. About there. Okay, let's have a little listen to that. Yeah, I like it. It's not perfect yet, but it's getting there. Maybe a compressor, or maybe a sidechain compressor to my kick group. There we go. Of course, I don't want it from that channel. So I'm going to remove that. The reason I don't want it from that channel is there's a lot of bass on this kick drum, and it never stops pumping the compressor. So I'm going to take it from a different channel. Did I take it from the click? Yeah, there we go. Here are all my side chains. So I'm going to send it from here. And it's the Falcon sidechain, and it's the compressor. That's better. And I'm going to play around with the pitch a bit as well, which obviously, because we're in a granular synthesizer, won't affect anything at all, really, apart from the sounds. Also creepy as hell. I like that now. Gonna move it quite a long way back. It's very noticeable at that pitch. Love it. Transform to audio track. Ooh, 3. 3. Why 3? Okay, fine, we'll do 3. Not sure what 3 is thinking. This is where it crashes. Don't know what that was about. Taking its sweet time is normally very fast. I can only think I've done something stupid somewhere. I just hope it turns out okay. I don't understand. Let's check that. Ask the questions to no lies. I have no idea what just happened there. And I think a nice little sort of evil dark pad would be very nice at that point. So I'm going to chuck in a massive. Probably kind of sort of square thing would be perfect actually. So voicing, we're going to take 3 voices. No, we're going to take 7 voices. Let's live a little. We'll go full. I want a little bit of detune. Envelope, chuck that up, stick out the release, stick out the attack. I'm going to be going for a low pass filter sounds. I want quite heavy filtering, so we're going 4-pole. A little bit of resonance, not too much. I don't like the resonance on these filters at all. It's very, very... In some sense, the resonance in the filter sort of sits in the sound and it forms like a cohesive part of the sound. In Massive, I find the resonance sort of sits on top of the sound and you can hear this. It's separate to the sound. It doesn't sound integrated. What do I mean by that? I don't know. But I don't like the filters in Massive, so there we go. Maybe it's just me. Gonna set up a bit of detune. Set them to sort of roughly the same position, but not too precisely. Give it a bit of a unique twist. God, what key am I in? I think I'm in... Yeah, no, I'm in F. I'm in F minor. Now I'll jump down here. And pretty much straight away, I think I want the sound to come in. In my head, I've kind of got to thinking it's like a 2-bar swell. So that's what I do when I'm exporting sounds down. I think, what am I going to make next? And the idea is that I've finished by the time I get to. That is what I have in my head. There's obviously way too much bass. But that is kind of where I'm headed. 3, bang. Jump that around. Extend the release all the way out. Sorry, excuse me. My throat's giving in. A bit of dimension expander, I think, on that. That's kind of like early reflections. That'd be good. And let's have a little listen. Oh, no, I don't mean the whole thing. That's going to be a muddy mess. I think we can open up a little bit more than that. And voicing. Yeah, that's right. For some reason, I was expecting it to sound more stereo. Don't know why. And the gain was too high. Unsurprisingly, with 7 voices. And I want it twice as long. That's what she said. So 3, I can now go longer on that attack. And also definitely on the amplitude attack. Let's get a delay on that. I'm becoming bored of the delays I've got, which is stupid, but I definitely am. I'm just going to use the analog delay on this. I don't need anything too flashy. It's a big sound. Ping pong will be fine. Feedback, big. I haven't got a lot of high frequencies. I do want low cut. Interesting. And EQ. I've taken out too much low end from the delay. The EQ has got a harmonic ringing on it. They didn't use prime numbers on their delay. I'm going to mute that. I'm going to try the Space Echo delay from Guitar Rig. I think the relative computational cheapness of that delay is not doing me any favours at this point. Speed, I want that right down. Echo volume, turn the feedback to around there. That's the sort of delay I had in mind. Remove. And long verb, obviously. I also want those off. Too much reverb on that. Too much something. Whoa. That's better. Could be louder. That's very loud. Better. And that sound, I think, would be better if it was more like there. Yeah. And I think just a straight chord of some description would be really useful there. Something to hold on to. So these effects are all really good, but there's not a tune, if that makes sense. There's no musical content. This is just stuff which is keeping your interest. But it's not a substitute for musical content. So at 49, I think I'll definitely need pitch, harmony, or something to keep them on it. Let's go with a Falcon. I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do here. So we'll do this nonsense of new part, new everything, new world. Key group. Okay, cool. I don't want a regular oscillator, thank you. I will be taking a wavetable. All these lovely waveforms. Primal Saw, that looks a lot like a 303 if you ask me. But I don't see a 303 pulse, and that's a shame. Square? Not really. You think they put that in? Anyhow, analog. Let's go for sync A. That's an interesting looking thing. I reckon I can make a florodelic sound with that. So, 49. I can get there with that. So, okay, I want probably envelope modulation on this. And it's going to be very quick. Turn the sustain right down. We're going to be looking around 20 milliseconds, I think. See how that sounds. Yeah, that's a really rough-edged, nasty bastard of a saw wave. Saw sync. Okay, I can work with that now. Let's get some of this going on. Some stereo detune, why not? Yeah. That sounds like the sort of thing I had in mind. Okay, so on the key group, I'm going to want a filter. This expander filter seems like a likely candidate. Try and make it a bandpass, give that a go. These could be a little bit more difficult to set up, and nothing too substantial. And I'm going to use the modulation I've already got, because that is pretty much exactly the right sort of shape. So, add modulation is key group, and it was. Well, I hope that works. We'll find out shortly. Perfect. Gain's quite high. That's a bit easier on my ears. Okay. And a special, I think a special delay here. Got that one. We're getting there. I think that one. Yeah, I'm only doing a stab chord, so if it just takes forever to fade off, that's not a big problem. A bit of short verb on there. And some long verb, although this will be hard to mix. And then of course EQ, obviously always EQ, always EQ, because you saw that flash down there. Don't want anything to do with that, thank you. Now, also I felt that when I put on the EQ, I kind of lost some dynamic punch because I took out all the body of the sounds. I'm going to try and get a little bit of that back by reducing that sustain. Okay, pretty happy with that. Let's see how it sounds. I'll go from there so I get some feeling. God damn. Not what I had in mind. Okay. I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, that's me for today. I'm out of time, I'm afraid. I've enjoyed it. It's been really good. We did stereo basses, then we did layered basses, and then we did turning a layered bass into a stereo bass. Then I had 5 minutes out, and then we started rewriting this tune to move it away from this thing which wasn't quite working, although there was nothing wrong with it. It just lacked a bit of soul somehow. We put in some effects. It worked great. That kind of works. Okay. Yeah, fantastic. Thanks for watching. I hope to catch you next time. I'm on every day this week, Monday to Friday between 9 and 11 GMT. Wherever you may be, I don't know what that is, but I'm in London, so 9 to 11 London time. I'll keep on writing this. I'll try and think of something else technical. If you've got any questions you'd like to ask, just slap them in the comments. That's always welcome. Or you can always drop by on YouTube and post a comment on a video. Ask any questions you like. I do respond. I do videos by request. If you've got something you want to know about music production, come and ask. Very friendly, very open. I'm happy to help. Or if you know something I'm doing wrong, you think I could do it better, then please do tell me. I'd love to know about that too. Thank you for watching today, and I will see you all next time. Peace out.